Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to another episode of Adventure Bound. Hi, my name is Wade Acuff, and today we're going to be talking about quick and dirty edits. What quick meaning fast, and dirty meaning not an overly complicated process, and also not very precision oriented process for getting a lot of changes to your illustrations and getting them done quickly. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But I do want to say, one more note. The other thing we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of polish and shine for your illustrations before they go out to a client or before you post them online, just to give them a little push to a little bit more professionalism, I guess. What's up, everybody in chat? Hi. I was trying to get to chat super quick. I almost jumped the gun on the intro. I want to say hey to everybody. What's up, Clarissa? What's up, Cody? How's it going? Oliver, what's up, D? Peter Bex, how are you? Barbara, CJ, what's up? And whoever the three people that were waiting in the YouTube chat for, I think a few, like probably an hour. Thanks so much. It's time. We're ready. And if you're not familiar with where we broadcast, we're on Behance. Hi, Behance. You guys are over here as well. But we're also on YouTube, and check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Adobe Live Community. That's where you can find it. And today's going to be a little different. We're going to get to some of these processes, but it's a good chunk of notes that I have. So keep me straight, chat. I'm going to try to check in on you guys as much as possible. But let's go ahead and get into it. And to borrow a phrase from another show on Adobe Live, our good friends at Motion Design Hotline. This is a real illustration for a real client. This is real work for real people. This is Smiling Tom is his name. And if you're not familiar with how I work, I generally like to work with one layer, especially in the concepting phase of this is where we are. This is not a finished illustration. This is at a stage where I'm like, maybe I can send this off and start getting approvals and, in the direction we're going and that sort of thing. But that's where we're going to start today, because the scenario I'm setting up for this is like, we've got our concept stage. We've got this thing laid out. But then I do break things apart, and this is where we're starting with this. And I'm going to just start with our classic lasso tool. And if anybody in chat can figure out how I'm using this differently while I use it, bonus points, I guess. I don't know. We don't have anything to give away here, but if we did, you would get it. All right, so I am just going to select this, just using the lasso tool as normal, mostly normal. And this isn't going to be like, this is not all we're doing today. This is the baby steps. So I'm selecting this, and I'm just going to separate out the jacket, because let's say we want to talk about painting just the jacket on its own. Once we're ready to break this out, maybe we want to add some details to the jacket. We want to add some kind of, texture or something. And I'm just going to select these chunks all by themselves. Has anybody figured out how I'm using the lasso tool just slightly different than its default? No? Nobody? Let me check. YouTube. What we got, YouTube? What's up, Rivers Ash Production? Hi, over on YouTube. How's it going? Also, good friend Tiny is in chat. Awesome. So yeah, we're using the tool a little bit different. It is the default tool, but if you notice over here, I have this set to add selection. Default is just this normal, like our normal grab something and everything else deselects. But I like to work with the add selection, so I don't have to hold down the Alt or Option button, where if I were on this, let's see, Shift. So it's Shift to add this way. But since I'm growing the selection with every little, lasso, I can just leave this on to this add, so that it adds to the selection. You can just leave it on this. And then if you want to get the opposite of that, you can just hold down the Alt or Option and deselect. Does that make sense? So that's just the way I like to work with it. It's just another little quick, tip on how I like to do things. All right, so let's separate this. A couple of options here. We could do the simple thing of just dragging a new layer. All I did was hold down Alt or Option and pull up, and you see a little extra arrow under that layer, which means you're making a duplicate. And duplicate, and then I could Control Shift I to invert the layer and delete. And if I hide the bottom layer, we have just the jacket. That seems like a lot of work. I don't want to do that. I don't like it. I don't want to do all that. So let's go back to just our original layer. If you press Control, there's two ways to do this. If you want to make a copy of the jacket and keep the layer intact, just press Control J. I selected the inverse. I'm sorry. Let me invert that selection. So you have your jacket selected or whatever it is you're selecting, Control J, and it just makes a copy. So we have just the jacket. But you can also do this in another fashion where you add, let me just undo this, Control Shift J, and now it takes the jacket away from the underlying layer. So now you have a copy of that. And the good thing about this is it puts you right into the mode where you can paint all you want on this layer. If you do one of two things, you can lock the transparency, and now you can paint whatever you want, and it's all going to stay within that layer. The other way you can do it is if we didn't do that. Let's undo that, unlock that. You can just grab the selection by holding, pressing down Control or Command, clicking on that layer. It now selects the entire jacket in this case. And then you can just add a mask by clicking down here, and you've got a little mask. Now, when you paint on this, you can paint within the jacket the same way. They both work the same. One of them is a little bit more beneficial, in my opinion. The mask is a little bit better because you have a potential selection. You can drag and drop. It really just depends on how you want to work. But I wanted to let you know that that's a thing. I'm sure most of you did know that that was a thing. But, we've got a lot to get to. So let's just hide this. I've already done this. I've already broken down our Smiling Tom, and we've added some color. And I'm going to show you how we did this just on the grayscale. It's super simple. You probably already know how it happened. All I've done is added in a hue saturation adjustment layer. And I will show that. I will actually get rid of our, there we go. So we're back on our jacket. So the scenario has changed. We had a scenario where we want to give our client various color options for our jacket. And that's what we're going to do. So I have our jacket here. Everything else already has its own adjustment layer, but I want to add a hue saturation layer to this. And I want to colorize because we're just working on black and white right now. So I can just colorize this. And if you hold down Alt or Option and make a clipping mask for your layer, it will only make adjustments on the layer below it, the layer that it is clipped to. And now we can just change the hue to whatever we want. I'm going to pretend that Voodoo Val is our art director. So we're going to go with some purple here. Maybe desaturate it just a little bit. And we have one option here. But there are other ways to do this. A lot of ways to do things in Photoshop. You could make your jacket layer a smart object and then use smart adjustment layers to change to, you could stack them and change the color. You can add a hue saturation to that smart object, and you can make as many variations of that as you want. But I'm choosing not to do that because I want to add another adjustment to this. And I'm going to do that with a gradient map. And it's going to make us default colors here. But let's see if we can add, maybe we want a lining that is bluish and the outer shell of the jacket is that purple. So we can just start dialing that in a little bit. I do want to keep the dark fairly dark, and then get our blue in here. I did not clip it. It won't let me clip until I do this or this. It's okay. Now it's clipped. And then you can just jump back into it by double tapping, coming back in. I'm just going to drag this slider down until I get something a little bit closer to what I want. I'm going to take some saturation out. Again, this is just an example. Click OK. So the other thing you may have noticed is we have two clipping masks, or two adjustment layers clipped to our jacket. But there are, if you can see, there are masks that are not being used to each one of these. And we don't need them. We could delete them if we wanted to. But we can also use them if we would like. And it works just like a mask in any other case. If I want to reveal this purple that is our top, so I'm basically painting with black, which will conceal and hide everything that's on this top gradient layer that the adjustment layer. So if I just paint with black over the top of this, it's going to give us back our purple. And now we have a little bit of a lining. I want to adjust and make that purple a little bit more prominent. There we go. And they are adjusting for each other. So they are stacked. So if I turn this off, you'll see that there's a little bit of adjustment. Like that's essentially without the purple layer. And there it is with the purple. All right, so this, we could group these and call this one option. We'll just say option 1. If I could spell option. Option 1. I'm going to make another copy of that. Turn that off. And then we can jump in here and change up some things. Maybe we want something with a red or maybe a yellow-ish. More desert type colors since he's kind of a Western guy. Click OK. And then we can just change the colorized hue saturation layer all the way to red. And we get another complete option. So now you could send these two options off to the client and say, hey, which one of these do you like? So that's one way to make a quick change and set up your process in a fairly simple way. Let's see if there's any questions. Western Joker with the whole idea though, we can't get into the idea necessarily, but it's definitely a Western Joker with that purple for sure. I want to know how I got these spurs. All right, so let's jump into another example, and we've got our little DeVito bot. If you guys, we made this humble little fellow a couple of episodes ago, but I thought, you know what, perfect for this. We're going to do a very similar thing where I am selecting, again, with our selection tool here, just a little lasso tool, set to add, making a really rough selection. You know, there is no smoothing on the lasso tool, which I've talked about, hoping they add, because, you know, this is a rough line. It's hard to see it, but it's, you know, it's not super clean. I could be better with my Wacom tablet probably and be a little cleaner. But there's another option I wanted to show you, and it doesn't get used a lot. I think it's kind of fallen out of fashion with the advent of like select subject and having ways to adjust the select subject that way. Like there are options that are available. But over here, I'm going to slide everything over just for a minute so you can see it. There's a quick selection option down here. And if I turn that on, you're going to get a red field for everything that's outside of your selection. That's this little button right here. If I toggle it on and off, you get quick selection. And the reason I still like to use, on occasion, quick selection is it allows me to paint my edge. And why is that why would that be important for anybody really? Well, it's because if I have a clean, super clean edge in an illustration, but my style is more painterly, it's going to pop out. It's going to be, I mean, you're going to have to work already, You can either just paint on the layer, which is what I do a lot of times, or your selection is going to look super clean compared to the rest of your work. So I do like to sometimes come in here with the quick selection when I'm selecting something and make sure there's some soft edge, because you can have a gradient on this. Like this can be varying levels of selected pixels. It doesn't have to be a hard edge. So that's one of the ways I use the quick selection that I feel like it benefits me more so than, if there wasn't an option for it. I know it does get used in, photography editing still quite a bit. But I do like a good painterly edge when it's called for. Which, this is a robot. I guess there's an argument for it to not be a painterly edge. Don't make us ban you, Tiny. I'm completely joking. It's a lovely planet. It's a lovely planet. Yeah, let's see. We got everything in the Behance chat. There we go. Yeah, painterly robot, which I do like a good painterly robot. Okay, all right. Oh, and also let me get back to this, because all I'm going to do is deselect this by clicking this same button. So we don't need to stay in that mode. But I do want to show another little thing. If you press R, you can get this rotation, which I use all the time. That way I can move my canvas around so that I can have a better way of drawing or painting or whatever needs to be. Usually for straight lines, I use it quite a bit. That's typically how I use it. But when you're done with that and you don't need to be at any kind of weird angle, just press escape and it takes you back. All right, so we have this selection, sort of a painterly edge. I just wanted to let you know that that's a thing. We're going to deselect, and we have our selection. What am I going to do? Of course, we're going to do what we did before, Control-Shift-J, and now we have the torso is separated. But another quick and dirty edit, and a way to possibly add shadows, internal shadows. We're not talking about shading or putting value on the entire image, but like piece by piece. And I'll do it real quickly. If we want to add ambient occlusion, which is just basically where two things touch against each other, there's usually like a shadow that's where light can't get to. So I'm just going to make a little layer, call it AO. And then I am going to select a soft brush. And since it's under this other layer, I can just start dropping in shadows. We can do that around the arms, around the neck. And that's just a good way to do. You can also use, like I've got a smudge brush that I'm pulling out here that I'm just kind of smudging everything. And this is probably a good place to say too, if you want to put this all in a group and then select all the groups together. I'm holding down Control and Shift to add the torso back with the body. I can grab the group, select the group, and then add a mask to that. So now I can paint anywhere I want, but it's going to stay within that original shape. Just like to throw that in there so that you know that you can add a mask to a group. Nothing crazy there, but we of course do have this all done for us. So we've got our little robot guy, and I did leave a couple of these unfinished so we could finish this up. So I've got the ambient occlusion for his thighs, and I'm going to jump in here a little bit so that we can add some shadows. Classic knee shadow. Let's see. That classic knee shadow. And then I think I wanted to add something with the head then in there. Get a little shadow under that. What's up, Ashraful? How's it going? So I left this pretty flat so that you could see the ambient occlusion a little bit better. But just so you know, if we were doing this and I wanted to, you know, I'll just drop in some shadow on this just so you can kind of see what the full effect would look like if we were actually going to illustrate this guy. I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow, kind of a front lit situation here. And then add a little bit of maybe highlight, something like this. And see, that was very quick and very dirty. And what I mean by dirty in this case, chat, is if I turn this off and we kind of scroll through these, I'm going to turn the torso off. And this is the shadow layer. This thing is gross. I didn't have to be precise. I didn't have to really, you know, get in here and really get close on the line and like, oh, I can't let this shadow bleed over at all. I have to. No, it's super quick. It's really kind of messy, but the overall look still works when you put everything together. And you can work really fast this way. So just another thing there with the ambient occlusion and kind of compartmentalizing your layers. Let's see what I'm missing in my notes. Okay. All right, so I think we're all there. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah. So since we're talking about selections and all of that multiple times here, we can, and this is another thing I like to do. This example may come off a little weird, but I'm going to try. So I have a design that, let's say you have a design that you made, and it's highly, you know, more intricate than the rest of it. Well, you can select it, no matter how you select it. If you select it with a lasso tool and you're making little, you know, fine, selections that might drive you nuts after you do it for a while. If you do it once, make a mask out of it and save it. What I like to do, I'm doing this very quickly. I'm just selecting the design. Sometimes all the things you want to affect may not be on the same layer. So for instance, I have a lights layer right here. I'm going to go ahead and select that as well. And now everything is on one layer. I'm just going to make an empty layer. Maybe call it save selection. I don't know. It can be whatever. Obviously, I don't want that. Thank you. Save selection. And then you can make a mask. Turn that off, deselect. But when you want that selection, you can just click on this and you can paint over the top of it. We got to be on the layer, obviously. And now you can make a new layer. You don't have to paint on that layer. And why is it not working? Oh, it is working. Oh, there we go. It's because it was gray. I thought I had selected it. Okay. So there you go. And that's a way to kind of keep your selections. I know that might be a little bit complicated, but that way if you make multiple selections over multiple layers and you know you're going to come back to that selection over and over again, then definitely make a mask that you can just control and select. Control and tap and you can select it. Another little thing, while we're looking at this, there's a lot of marching ants going on here. These little outlines. Super annoying to me when you're working, but you want to work within the selection. Press Control H. You can hide that and you can still work. You don't have to see it to believe it. I don't know, something like that. So yeah, you can do that super easy way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a second about hiding your selections or whatever you're going to transform, because that's what we're moving on to now. So let's go back to Smiling Tom. Let's see. And you know what? We can leave him. We can leave him with his jacket. It's fine. Which jacket? Do we want purple or do we want the desert rose? The lavender or the desert rose? All right. So let's talk about the selection tool a little bit. Sorry, the move tool. Because this is what I use all the time to select my layers. And right now, you'll notice that it's set to auto select over here, and it's set to layer. You can set it to group if you're selecting groups a lot. But the problem with auto select sometimes, and I don't have an example here, but it may be selecting pixels on top. Like if you have a multiply layer or something that's hard to see, but you're still trying to select that layer. Auto select is not going to be your friend. You're going to have to go and find that layer and, actually select it and then move it. But what you can do, if you didn't know, you can take your mouse and right click and pick any layer that pixel is over is now an option to select. And the other thing you can do is you can press or toggle, I guess. Well, it's not really a toggle. You have to hold and press the controller command. And then no matter if you leave it as default on auto select and you press and hold controller command, it's still just going to grab the layer that you are selected on over in your layer menu. So I like to leave it on auto select, and then when I know that I need to grab something, I can either be on the layer that I need to move and hold down control or command, or I can just select over into the object I need. So that's just another little thing that's always a kind of tricky sometimes when you're trying to find a layer that's under other adjusted layers. Purple one looks good to you. Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's transform our friend here, our smiling Joker. And just as we're talking about it, so we're zooming in a little bit, right? We can kind of see what's happening here. Let's say we're going to take, transform the face or whatever. And I do this a lot of times too. I work with a window that has my illustration at full scale. So I just made a separate Smiling Tom window. So if I make any adjustments while I'm working on this one, let's see, I don't know, let's make some paint, like maybe he's wearing a mask or something, hiding his face in a robbery. Well, it'll update over here, and I usually have this on my other monitor so that I can have a full screen version of it at all times. But there's a couple of caveats here. I do like having this up. Let's go ahead and jump into the transform, and I'll tell you what the thing is about it, what it is about it. All right, so I'm going to grab, we're on the face layer. I'm just going to grab the face. And our good friend controller command T to transform. When you transform an object, you get a pivot point essentially, and you could just grab that pivot point. When you hover over it, it has the little move tool indicator icon next to it, and you can rotate it based off of that pivot point. Really important to set those before you scale things, because it can, it can save you a lot of time of like pushing and pulling things to make sure they transform in the right place. We're gonna make his head really big, just for fun. So if I try and move around the image, say I want to look at something else, or if I have this selection going on, I can only do it with the navigator, because I can come in here, and as soon as I do it, it gets rid of that selection in the middle of the tool. So I would have to Control T. I know this doesn't come up a lot, but it has come up in the past, and it's kind of frustrating. So I'm going to scale this up again just to show you what I'm talking about. So let's say I want to come over here and do, oh no, as soon as you click on the window, anything you're in the middle of is going to stop. And this is another reason why I'm a fan of the navigator. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Select our head again. Control T. Because if I'm over here and let's scale them back up again, and I come over to the navigator, I can move this up and down, zoom around. I can move this over here like this if I want. I can still use the space bar to move this around if I need to. And you can always control plus and minus to do that as well. It's just why I like to have this up, is it keeps my hand free from having to jump up around hotkeys that I don't use all the time. All right, so a little bit more about the transform. I'm gonna get rid of this window. And again, I selected the window, so let's transform Smiling Tom one more time. Because we are going to talk about actual transforming. I should have left that up, but it's okay. We can just hit Control or Command T again. Now you can do this. I'm about to transform and use the warp tool, warp options. You can of course do this with liquify as well. But I feel like the warp tools are kind of like people sleep on them because you can make some pretty refined adjustments. I mean, you could still do it in liquify, but it opens up a new window, and it's sometimes depending on your CPU or what your system is, it can be taxing. This is a lot less. It's a lot more friendly in that way, in my opinion. But you can make some changes here with the transform tool. But you can also, if you look over here, you'll see there's split options, which means if I hold down, I believe it's, or is it control? There, it's control. So if I hold down control or command, I can start splitting this lattice. And I'm going to do this to add, that's probably quite a bit of options there. So let's say we want to, I'm going to jump in here now, again with the navigator. And we want to, just increase his smile a little bit. I don't know. Make a few changes. Make it a little less symmetrical maybe. I don't know. Whatever these adjustments are, doesn't really matter. Do want to let you know that if you pivot this around, that can be an issue. Because the next thing, I was talking about hiding your what your transform while you're working, because this is annoying. This is honestly a bit much. So if you control H, it will leave the transform active while you make adjustments. It is harder to tell what's going on, and sometimes if I can get lucky, there might be a twist. There we go. So like this twisting is me actually grabbing one of the points by accident, and you can just press Control H to come back to it and then find out what you did if you need to. And then press Enter, and you can keep all of those options. So yeah, that's I love the warp tool for those reasons. It saves me a lot of time of popping into liquify, coming back out, and is also really good if you have an issue with wonk eye. If you know what I'm talking about, it will really save your life if you want to get rid of the old wonk eye. All right, let's see what's next. So we've got that. All right, so those are some of the quick edit things I wanted to talk about to make sure that the super quick, easy changes, but can make a dramatic difference. Let's go back. Let's turn. I'm gonna go in my history, and I'll just go back to where we were. There we go. That works. All right. So the next thing we're gonna get onto is kind of polishing and adding a little bit of shine to your illustrations, no matter what stage they are. For instance, this guy is not finished. This is not a finished product. But we can do some things to push it a little bit further, make it a little bit more presentable. And I want to show some examples of that by adding a shape. Just a shape behind something can go a long way. And I'm talking like these are of course traditional little robots that I've drawn, but the idea is the same, and it's super basic. I just add a little rectangle or a little square or something behind to kind of lock in the image. It pushes in this case, it pushes the robot forward, and it adds a little background and a nice horizontal composition. It kind of grounds the image. And the same thing with this one. It doesn't really ground it so much as it gives it a nice silhouette, because I noticed that all of this stuff was really going to be light on the page and it needed to pop out a little bit more. Add a shape. I mean, I could have filled in the entire background, but I felt like the shape with a few things breaking out of the edge for balance really helped the composition more than completely making the background dark. Same thing with this one, just punches this out a little bit. And with that same idea, and it's not like a stretch here, but it's the same idea. You can use these same shapes and the same idea to add context. So this is the same idea with a little shape behind your illustration or whatever. And a lot of these didn't take too long, like especially this one. This was just fun and was able to throw it out real quick. But adding the context of like, oh, this is one of the little pods that's launching. We've got multiple pods in the background. Oh, there's something bigger going on here. There's some story that's happening. And you get that, that everything gets related through just the shapes and the silhouettes that's going on here. Sort of the same thing with this one. I don't know. We've got like it's almost like a monument. Like the way I think I remembered this was a ruin robot or whatever that stopped where it was. But we have the same shape, the rectangle shape going on, but it's a forest. It's trees of some sort. So adds a little bit of context to it. And the same thing here. This guy's like reading a little, I don't know. He's reading something. Maybe it's a scroll. Maybe it's a map. I don't know. But just adding that scroll shape and repeating that theme just adds a little bit more to the overall image. But these things don't, I mean, the drawing of the robot takes, however, a couple hours, whatever it takes. Adding that background in is the least amount of time you're going to spend on this. Let's see, I think. Oh yeah. So I've got another one. This is another silly robot thing here. But this was just the idea of like, oh, it's a mummy, I guess, a robot mummy. I don't know. But the sarcophagus is the shape. So just add something more to that context. Simple little thing, but it goes a long way. Same idea with these, same situation. Got a little shape behind it. It breaks the shape just to add a little bit of foreground background. But in this case, I used some lighting. I used I kind of softened where the halo was so that it seems like it's glowing. And this one's just a little bit different. It's not really a lighting thing, but we've got, these really popular in the, I guess it was 80s, late 90s, these little horizontal caution stripes. I just added that to the top and to the bottom just to kind of blend the foreground in with the background. And then this one is sort of a similar thing where I just, put a viewfinder disc at the top and she is holding a viewfinder. So they kind of marries the background with the foreground. So let's do something like that with our pal Smiling Tom. Let's see. You know what? Let's do it with another illustration first and we'll come back. So we've got this gauntlet. This is another real work for real people situation. I'm going to add a layer. And you can see this is not finished. But if I had to send this out, I wouldn't want to send it out like, oh, here's this. But compositionally, if I have something that lets me break the border and make it a little bit more dynamic, and I just made a new layer, used the selection to make a rectangular selection, filling with black, click OK. And we already have something that's more dynamic than what we started with. Now, we could do things, we could find something contextually, if we wanted to add, I don't know what the story is specifically for this, but if we wanted to, we could definitely add that. We can play around with how this looks compositionally. Like, do we want it taller or, shorter? Do we want it breaking off the bottom as well? I don't like that. I like this better. So you can mess around with that, and it will kind of help you. It will guide you into making better compositional decisions as well. Nice, CJ. All right, so let's do the same thing for Smiling Tom. Let's see. I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom of this and then just make a shape here. And I think it is that I've done this so much that like this kind of comes natural to how I feel like the shape is going to work. I need to add a new layer. There we go. Black. There we go. And I feel like this works okay. This is fine. I think in this case, I would probably make sure that the hand was darker or something would happen over here just to make sure that it's kind of too close in value to what's happening. And you can also, like I said, adjust this stuff. Let's see. If I wanted to change this around. I actually liked it where it was, but I am going to add some height. Let's see. Because we could make this one of those situations where now Smiling Tom is kind of a Western. He's got a Western vibe to him. He's kind of flowing. Well, you know what? Let's make it more Western. We'll turn his other jacket back on. There we go. And you know what we could do? I'm going to grab this and I'm going to pick... let's see. I'm going to pick a color. Let's see if we can make this work. It needs to be dark, but we might be able to play into the reds. Let's see if this is going to work. That's not bad. It's not Brad. That's not Brad either. But we can make this contextual like we were doing, like I did with some of these, where, you know, we've got a little bit more content coming through. And we can do that. Just maybe this is like, what is the park? Monument Park, Monument National Park. Basically make this look like a desert landscape. At least that would be the attempt. Oops. Let me make sure I'm the right color here. But yeah, you could you know, add context by putting the right landscape with the right illustration or whatever else would work with this. I'm not sure this is going to read as desert, and that's okay. Some kind of prairie or plain. I don't know. But I think you get the idea. So that's another way to add like a little bit of context, a little bit of shape. It's a way to give this composition a little bit of life than just sending out like, oh, here's the character. Hope you like it. This just gets a little bit more vibey. You could add a gradient here. There's a lot of stuff you could do. Okay, so let's get back to our gauntlet because, you know, we're really pushing this, right? So we're like, hey, I didn't finish, or I'm not quite done, or where I need to be with the illustration, but I'm going to send you something so we can start, you know, talking about where we're going. I personally don't prefer to do that. I like to have something I'm happy with, but it does happen. Sometimes you have to work fast and you have to get things out. Let's talk about rim lighting. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to switch it up a little bit here, guys. You don't have to have rim lighting. I understand the urge, especially if you're like new to it and you're really starting to come into your own as far as rim lighting goes, or an edge light, however you want to say it. It's not always necessary, and I have been guilty of that as well. Adding rim light on everything just because. But I'm going to show you a real quick way to do that. It's just like what we've been doing. Select the entire image by holding Control and then selecting the layer. It will select it for you. Add a new layer on top. And then Control H, hide. Now, what I like to do, and I'm going to do that all again, but just so you know, I like to add cones for where my light is coming from. So if the light is coming from behind it, I like to add a little cone that tells me the light is coming from this way. It's a little hard to tell here, but that's what I'm doing when I add these little cones. So the light's going to be coming down from the top, essentially, top and back. So back to it, select with Control or Command the layer. It gives you the outline, which you can see there's an outline happening there. And then you can, let's see, how do I want to do this? There's multiple ways. I could add a mask if I want to. And then let's go. Okay. So I just added a mask to this. Now I can paint within this shape all I want to. But I'm only going to go from the cone angle and start just following the contours of this. And you kind of have to get some practice with it. You have to figure out, start thinking in 3D as much as you can. But you can already see it's starting to help pop out this edge. And it's really like, in this case, it kind of adds something. Sometimes rim light, like I was just saying, gets overused, gets a little bit out of hand. I've definitely ruined some things in the past. I mean, if it's digital, you can bring it back pretty quickly. If it's not, it's a little tougher sometimes. But you got to try it. I always say, even with rim light, if you've overdone it, if you've done it too much lately, I still say try it, because sometimes it will push it to the next level. So let's see. Okay, so that's this direction. We can flip it. I'm just going to make a new layer. Turn this off. Oh no, did I paint that on? Oh no, it's the same layer. Okay. Control A, delete. And then since we're still masked, I'm going to turn this off. But if, let's say, we're coming from the other direction, same thing. Just start thinking about where the light kind of crawls over the object. And I will say this, it is good. I have little objects. I don't really have anything else, but I have this little duck. And I can shine a flashlight or my phone light over the top of it to see how it would roll over a curve. I sometimes have a tennis ball laying around. I don't do it as much as I used to, probably should. But it's a good way to kind of judge where your light's going to come from, where it's going to hit when you start working with rim light. And, you know, the best reference is things you have around you. Your dog. Sorry. Apologies to all the dogs out there. They're like, my toy. Okay. So there you go. Rim light from both directions. Or you could have rim light all the way around it. It could be completely backlit. That is an option. But you could send this off now and be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've got rim light on here. Everybody, that's only the best use rim light. What do you think? So then you could post it and everybody would clap and, you know, you'd be off to world renowned and riches immediately. All right. Let's see. What else? Okay. Yes. So back to just having an object on a page. Sometimes that's fine. Just like this was before we added the little shape. You know, it'd be okay. I could go, here's where we're at. Take a look. But then there are times where you have practically a finished illustration. This is the illustration we're talking about now. There's a clean silhouette. It's kind of working, but it is very stark at the moment. And another thing, so one of the things I like to do to kind of combat that starkness, and we have a couple of advantages here. One, this is very gold and bronze and all the yellows and oranges. We have an opportunity to use a little bit of color theory to help pop this out even more. And so complementary colors for this would be somewhere in the purples and blues, some greenish, possibly. So somewhere in a teal. And I have a background for this. I'm not going to turn it on just yet because I want to demonstrate how you can make this happen for yourself. So once you've kind of got your object, and I like to work with, when I started making the color changes for this, when I started adding color to the sketch, I already had a background in mind because I knew what the colors of this was going to be. I already knew I was going to be pushing it. So I don't normally complete something to this level and then say, oh, what about a background? No, I did have this in mind, just full disclosure, but the same principle works. I like to add something in rough, and I'm using, let's see what we got here. I'm using my chalk brush. Let's see, Control D. And I'm going to try and find, just by sampling, try and find some place that I like, that I think is working. Because you're balancing, there's a couple of things you're doing. You're trying to balance not only the color at this point, but the value. So let's say this is what we like. This is where we're going. And this is a great opportunity to talk about using the background to kind of highlight the object. Sometimes literally, sometimes just in the way you kind of make shapes around it. But I'm not going to sit here and paint this whole thing. I'm going to fill it because I found the color. I found the color I wanted. That is our foreground color. So I switched that over, and we've got a gun on a blue field. This thing is like a steampunk. It's supposed to be like a Godzilla blast or something, but it needs a little texture, and that's why all I'm doing is sampling those colors around that same. And these are analogous colors that are similar to what we have. Some variations in saturation, variations in value, and I like the chunky texture. You can do this with any brush that's kind of a texture brush, and I'm just kind of painting along here. But I am leaving a little bit brighter behind it because I want that to be the highlight. We could probably even go into some deeper blues. And once you find those colors that you think work, once you find those colors, you can kind of just sample within the document. And I'll turn the blast on, the little blast effect, so you can see what it looks like. If I can find it. There it is. So that's the blast effect, and just something that quick. Like, I didn't spend any time on this. I don't think it looks great. I'm not like super sitting here going, hey, look what I did. But it's far better, I think, than just the stark image. It gives it a place to live. There's a place for it to rest. This was the background that I have for it. I don't know. Now I'm like, that may be too dark. I kind of like this better. You know? Maybe I'll split the diff. Look at that. See, chat? We did something. We did something amazing. And that's great because we are almost out of time. But yeah, I think that covers just about anything that we were going to go over today. Let's see. Oh, one more thing with the blend modes, since we're here and we have a little bit of time. I didn't talk about this, but we've got, let's see, our rim light. This may not be the best for that. Yeah, it needs to work, and it would have to work on something with a color layer, but you know what? How much time do we have? Not a lot. I'm going to see if I can do a little rim light on this. Same process. Just selected my layer. I'm going to add a new layer. Let's hop in here a little bit. Let's put one on the top of this. I'm going to go ahead and make a mask. And then let's find a really bright light. And I'm just going to go along the edge of this. Now it's not really showing up, but if I go into, where are you, color dodge? Color dodge. Well, maybe we'll grab a different color. Something in the red. That's not terrible. But I'm just adding a little bit of rim light to this. I don't know. Am I going to find something else I liked from this stream and keep it in this illustration? But here I'm just adding a little bit of light to the tops of these areas, just like we did with the other one. It's kind of giving it a little bit of silhouette. You know what have been better? You know what? It still can be better. I'm going to deselect. Got 60 seconds. Go. I'm going to add this to the bottom. See what happens. And maybe it may not be enough light. Let's see if I can. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't like that the all of it's red. That's just because of the color that I picked. But I don't mind it. It's actually not terrible. But I am using a blend mode, which is also why I wanted to show that real quick. And then you could flip this around to any mode that works or doesn't work. I mean, maybe linear dodge would be better. But just to let you know, to make sure you play with those and add them last. Here's my preference for those. Make sure you add those last because I don't want to hand this off to anybody or have anybody looking through layers that they can't manipulate by painting. But that's a personal choice. But that is going to do it for me. Thanks, everybody. I hope you got something out of this. I had a lot of fun showing it. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow in the AM. So come back over to Adobe Live and check things out. We'll see everybody real soon. Bye, everybody.